This has Mavs fans fired the heck up. And while we're fired up, in the meantime, Bill Simmons is crying very, very real tears at this exact moment. Why? Because Cooper Flagg, the main event, won Rookie of the Year for the 2025-2026 season. Guys, I'm not going to jump in the pod today and pretend like this is going to come as a shock to anybody. You've already had 24 hours to react to this news and let all of the feelings just come over you. And what a glorious day. You know what I'm not going to do in this podcast, though? I'm not going to talk about the guy that got second place in the votes. I'm not going to talk about the really, really dumb thing that Carmelo Anthony said on national television after the announcement was made yesterday. I am not going to mention he who must not be named. Today is Cooper Flagg Day. Actually, yesterday was Cooper Flagg Day. But today, I'm talking about it. I am so freaking excited for our rookie. And guys, what a day. What a day. I am your host, Ethan, the Advisor Clayton. Welcome to the Rookie of the Year party. And by party, I mean dope podcast. This is Your Mavs, a Dallas Mavericks podcast where all are welcome, including salty Hornets fans. But y'all better behave. You understand me? Guys, I'm so excited. I kind of regret not jumping in the pod and doing an emergency pod yesterday, but you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. It was a crazy day. Today was a crazy day. I'm even jumping in the studio later than I intended to, but don't let me even move on without showing you that I am wearing my Cooper Flagg jersey. If I could wear it to work, I would have worn it all day. I would have been so obnoxious. But in this episode, all I'm talking about is highlights of the Rookie of the Year season that we just got to witness. Guys, we probably talked about almost every game individually and what his performances looked like and the things that we saw from him early on, the things that we wanted to see improvements in. And guys, he was so much better than I think anybody could have imagined. He is a two-way star already in this league. And yeah, I do believe he was deserving of this award. So I'm just going to kind of hit some of the highlights here. I don't know how long this is going to take. In fact, it is my wife's birthday today, and I have a special dinner in the oven right now. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on the clock and go check on that. But guys, listen, Cooper Flagg was the third Rookie of the Year winner in Dallas Mavericks franchise history. Okay. First happened in the 94 and 95 season, Jason Kidd, who was co-Rookie of the Year with Grant Hill. Okay. Had me a little bit nervous yesterday when it was Grant Hill walking up to the stage to make the announcement. I was like, uh-oh. Does that mean that it's a co-Rookie of the Year situation? But guys, I talked about that off and on throughout the especially last stretch of the season about whether or not that should happen. But I also didn't really know how voting worked. Okay. I think the way they have voting set up now makes it impossible for there to be co-Rookies of the Year. So anyway, third in franchise history, first with Jason Kidd. The second one was Luka Doncic. That happened 7 years ago. Isn't that crazy to imagine that we went from? I'm not gonna do that whole thing. Just ignore that part. But yeah, 7 years ago we got Luka Doncic as Rookie of the Year. Now we have Cooper Flagg, who averaged 21 points a game, 6.7 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and I don't need to tell you this because you've already heard it a million times, but I'm going to do it anyway. He is the first rookie since Michael Jordan to lead his team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. Okay. That is an incredible feat. And I even heard on the DLLS Mavs podcast, I believe it was yesterday, that he was about 9 or 10 blocks away from being the team's leader in blocks as well. But Daniel Gafford takes the cake on that one. On the here are his shooting splits: 46.8 from the field, 29.5 from three, and then 82.7 from the free throw line. I'm gonna kind of gloss over the 29.5, and I really want to highlight the fact that he was just shy of 50% from the field after having such a rough start to his offensive season. For him to really turn that corner and be right damn near 47% from the field, I think is a huge turnaround from what we were seeing at the start of the season. Okay. The 82.7% from the free throw line shows us that he does have good natural form. He is a good natural shooter. And I believe the 29.5 is going to skyrocket in the next season. Now, also on the DLLS Mavs podcast, the guys brought on Matt McKenzie, who is the Cooper Flagg's trainer, and he's been working with Coop since he was 11 freaking years old. 11. Okay. And the thing that he said that they're going to be working on all summer is, guess what? The jump shot. They're going to be simulating all sorts of scenarios, off ball, on ball, double teamed, whatever, right? Like they're going to be running through all the scenarios. And I think the goal is that he's taking 1,000 jump shots per day. You better believe we're going to see those numbers skyrocket. And I expect the field goal percentage to be above 50%. I expect the free throw percent to be between 85 and 88. Okay. And the 3-point shot, it's going to go up from 29.5 to at least 35, maybe 36%. You heard it here first. Keeping on, moving on here. At the very start of the season, I just mentioned he had what many would consider to be a rough start. Okay. And by the way, who wouldn't, as an 18-year-old playing out of position the first time in his life playing point guard? Okay. Not only was he playing out of position for the first time in his life, but it was playing point guard on a team that was highly, highly flawed. Okay. No floor spacers, no real shooters other than Klay Thompson. And we saw how he started off the season. So Coop was basically thrown out into the deep end and expected to figure it out. And he did pretty quickly. Okay. That's not to say that his offensive numbers weren't terrible at the start, because they were. But we're going to chalk that up as he was 18, playing a position he had never played before in a system that hadn't really taken full shape yet, on a roster that is deeply, deeply flawed. How many times have we talked about that this year? But then, kind of everything was front and center on opening night. The headline was number 1 versus number 2, right? Cooper Flagg versus Dylan Harper. And really, the underlying subtext was previous rookie of the years, Victor Wembanyama and Stephon Castle. Really, the comparison is like what I'm starting to see, and hopefully you guys can agree with me. He is already putting himself on the same plane, in the same conversation as players like Wemby. So yeah, that was going to be a headline coming into that first game, and oh my gosh, he was completely shell-shocked in his first game as an NBA player. Who wouldn't? Whenever you have 8'11" alien Victor Wembanyama waiting for you in the paint. You could tell that he was being extra cautious. He was second guessing pretty much everything that he was doing, and he was being covered by one of the league's best point of attack defenders in Stephon Castle. Like, welcome to the NBA, right? And I believe he even said that like directly. That was like his big welcome to the league moment whenever he saw Wemby doing step back threes and sending his stuff into the second and third row. Meanwhile, absolute dog Stephon Castle was just locking him up. Okay. So not a great debut in the NBA. But then we played San Antonio later in the season. I'm skipping way ahead. April 10th, I believe it was our second to last game of the regular season. He showed just how far he had come offensively, as a playmaker, and as a defender. He put up a stat line of 33, 6, and 5. All the same players were on the court. The only difference between the start of the season and the end of the season was that we didn't have Anthony Davis anymore. San Antonio was exactly the same. We had the same matchups. Everything was the same, except Cooper Flagg had leveled up in a huge, huge way. But moving right along, it was a slower start to the season, that was accentuated by, your welcome to the league moment by Wemby and Castle. But then late November, he had his first 30-point game against the Los Angeles Clippers, and he really, really popped in that game. He dunked over Kawhi Leonard. He had like one of those "what's up, Unk" moments whenever he dunked over Kawhi and Kawhi was on the floor. He kind of had a little stare down moment. Homie popped in that game, and I think from there he started to build confidence. He started to build momentum. Like, if Kawhi Leonard, one of the league's premier defenders right now, cannot stop me from doing what I just did, I think I can take on just about anybody. And from there, he really turned a corner as a scorer and a playmaker. This happened in the month of December. And the best game of his young career, maybe even of the entire season. It wasn't his highest scoring output, mind you, but it was a game in December. It was the first game after him turning 19 years old on the road against the Denver Nuggets, who were like number 2 in the West at that time. He put up 33, 9, and 9 in a win against the Denver Nuggets. So, yeah, I'm going to say that was his best game of his rookie season, even though he had a 50-point game, he had a 49-point game, he had all those things that we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But 1 rebound and 1 assist away from a triple-double in a win on the road in Denver against the best player in the world. All right. And actually, that might be up for debate depending on who you ask. Maybe SGA is the best player in the world. But the point still stands. He really turned the corner in the month of December as a scorer and a playmaker. And then he flipped the switch in January as a shooter and mid-range demon, I will say. An absolute demon. He was starting to find his spots. He was starting to find where he's comfortable on the floor, and he was going to get to those spots no matter what. And if he was in a mismatch, he was going to play bully ball. If somebody that was taller and with a longer wingspan than him was on him, then he was going to use his speed and his dribbling skills to get around or through that guy. And he just started connecting in a big, big way. And then he had his first 40-point game in the month of January. Who did that come against? The Charlotte Hornets. And it was a 49-point game, mind you. It could have been his first 50-point game way back then. But if you'll remember, Caleb Martin basically, I think there's like 2 minutes left. It's a fast break opportunity. Coop is streaking down the middle. He's wide open in the lane. But Caleb Martin decided to do some sort of audition tape for the dunk contest, and it ended poorly, and Cooper Flagg ended with 49 points. But he did it against Charlotte, and it was a really, really fun game. We're like, okay, so he's got not just a bag, but a deep, deep bag. Okay. Then going into February, our guy went on an absolute scoring tear, right? He had 33-point game, 35-point game, 31-point game, 40-point game, 42-point game. Like, he was just all over the place getting the ball in the hoop. And he was, at that point, most of the All-Star starters had been announced, and a couple of guys had recused themselves due to injuries, and there was conversation about like who was going to replace them on the All-Star team. And I believe Cooper Flagg got really close to being in that conversation of like, okay, you weren't really like the first choice to make All-Star team, but because of the injuries, like, congrats, Rook, you're in there. Didn't quite happen. And then he injured his foot before the All-Star break. Okay. And missed quite a bit of time. I think it was like 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. Part of that was the All-Star break itself. And then on the other side of it, he took his time getting back. But then he came back. It was early March, and it was about 2 weeks of basketball before Cooper Flagg started feeling comfortable again and started really feeling like Coop again. So he wasn't really hitting from the field all that efficiently. He didn't look super confident whenever he was putting shots up. Something wasn't there. Like, it was missing something. But during that same 2.5, 3 week period, as he was ramping up and starting to feel himself again, he turned another corner as a playmaker, and he had multiple double-digit assist nights heading out of March. So the shot isn't falling, but he found other ways to contribute to the game. All the people that have been detractors of his Rookie of the Year campaign were like, well, he didn't really impact winning if the Mavericks only won 26 games the entire season. Guys, the only reason we won 26 games this season was because of how much he impacted, okay? Both sides of the ball. Offensively, defensively, as a playmaker, as a locker room leader that hates losing. Guys, he really figured it out in the month of March. And as you know, like that last month of the season, he really put the cherry on top for his Rookie of the Year campaign. Meanwhile, the other guy saw his numbers start to tank in a big way. Let's see. Yeah, that last month, guys, I'm going to say was just so unbelievably special. We did see a 50-point game. He was the youngest player in NBA history, the first teenager to have a 50-point game. And he almost had like back-to-back 50-point games. And the second of that back-to-back was a 45er, which is still really, really impressive. But yeah, youngest 50-piece in NBA history. That belongs to your guy, Cooper Flagg. Some other notes from the season. He was the number one option for the Dallas Mavericks for 99% of the season. The only time that he wasn't the number one option was the like 6 or 7 games that Anthony Davis played, and we had to pretend like he was our best player on the court, and that all the offense was going to run through him. Remember over the summer, there were all those rumors about this new motion offense that we were going to be implementing, and essentially Anthony Davis was going to be used as a Domantas Sabonis type of hub for our offense. So that's the kind of stuff we were thinking about doing and trying to execute on whenever Anthony Davis was on the court. And so I guess you could say in those games, Anthony Davis was our number one option, right? And you know how that went. All the other times, it was Cooper Flagg, right? Most of the season, he played without an actual table-setting point guard. I say most because, depending on who you ask, Ryan Nembhard is pretty good at that sort of thing. But he was on a 2-way contract, and he didn't get that converted to a standard NBA contract until like March. So there was a lot of time that Cooper Flagg was on the court making his own magic. There was not a real table setting or playmaking guard on the floor with him. So he was doing things on the ball, off the ball. He was having to do everything. Okay. And whenever he did have that on the court, particularly the minutes between him and Ryan Nembhard on the court at the same time, the numbers, the efficiency overall is night and day difference, right? Coop showed that, yeah, he's really good on the ball. Like, because again, he got thrown out with the Sharks like from day one. But like as we moved Nimby more comfortably into the rotation, it started to make more sense that, like, yeah, he's also unbelievable off ball. In fact, like that's probably where he's best served. But he went 99% of the season without having that type of offensive flow, where again, he's just having to make his own magic. Let's see. Some other things about his game. He is an elite help side lurker type of defender. He's not necessarily your lockdown perimeter defender, but he is switchable. He is quick. He has a long wingspan. He's athletic. He can get up and send your stuff into the stands. But yeah, I love the help side defense that he showed us this season. And if we get another like 1 or 2 guys that are lockdown defenders in our starting 5, and we got our point of attack lockdown, we've got our paint lockdown. Coop being able to float between those 2 spots on the floor and get weak side blocks, guys, that's going to be like get your popcorn ready type of stuff. He was showing that pretty much from day one, and that was what translated most quickly in the NBA. He was ready like day one on that kind of thing. His defense was NBA ready day one. His motor was NBA ready day one. Guys, like if you watch any number of moments throughout the season, he was never really taking a play off until kind of like at the very end, where you could see that his body language was starting to suffer a little bit. Get out. His body language was starting to suffer a little bit because he hates losing, and we were losing so many games. But that motor, guys, he's going to dive for loose balls. He's going to mix it up in the paint with if there's a guy that is going to go get the rebound that he wants to get. He's going to mix it up. His bully ball, in my mind, was pretty well NBA ready from day one, and that he knows how to recognize mismatches. If he's got someone smaller on him, he's going to put a body, he's going to back him down, and he's got that elite mid-range floater type of shot. That was NBA ready from day one. What else was? His basketball IQ and his just overall instincts, his ability to see the floor, know where his guys are going, make the right reads at all times. Like, that was super apparent from day one. Now, that didn't come without turnovers and mistakes and all the things that you would expect from a rookie, especially being played out of position. But there's so many things that he showed us this season that you can't teach, you can't coach. He just has it, right? The things that you can teach, like a good rhythm, 3-point shooting and all that, like those are the things he's going to be working on like an absolute maniac. Like, the second the season was over, he was ready to get back in the lab, get back in the gym, and basically the Mavs front office is like, hey man, I love your work ethic. Go take a vacation. We'll see you in a few weeks, right? Like that's the mentality that he brought into the NBA and that he's shown us all season. I love that probably the most about his game. There is no telling what his ceiling is. He may not have a ceiling when it's all said and done, because his work ethic mixed with his motor, mixed with his like inherent skill and instincts, guys, he's going to be a top 2-3 player in the NBA behind Wemby. And, let's say AJ DeBonta turns into something real. Like these guys are going to be the faces of the future of the NBA, not just specifically talking about Cooper Flagg and the Mavericks. I'm talking about just the NBA in general. These are Wemby, Coop, like those guys, the two-way stars that are going to be on the short list of Defensive Player of the Year or All NBA defense. Like that's what you want to see from the face of the league, and that's what we have in Cooper Flagg, right? I'm so excited. I think as incredible as this rookie season was, as record-breaking as this rookie season was, I think some of the things that we were starting to see in the months of March and even in January, I would say those are the 2 months where it really felt like he had discovered his powers on the offensive side of the ball. Like I kind of expect to see Cooper Flagg averaging 25 a game next season. 25, 8, and 6. 25, 8, and 6. You heard it here first. Will that get him an all-star? You better believe it. Will that get him in the all-NBA conversation? You better believe it. I think he probably makes all-NBA third team next season, which means he's a top 15 to 20 player in the NBA. I'm ready to talk mad mess on all of those things right now, because this, in my mind, is the first of many, many awards that he's going to be winning. Now, these are all individual accolades that I've kind of spent the entire episode talking about. But guys, the last thing I want to leave you with is I see him making the Dallas Mavericks a better team day in, day out, because they see the motor. They see his desire to win constantly. They see how not necessarily bent out of shape, but how distraught he is to lose games. He doesn't want to replicate that ever again. So I need the rest of the Dallas Mavericks to follow his lead. I need the rest of the Mavericks to get in the gym, obsess over the techniques, obsess over the basics of the game like Coop does. And if we get 4 or 5 guys that are totally bought into being exactly Coop, we're going to follow your lead, guys. That's a championship type of team. Now we'll figure out the personnel. We'll figure out the offensive schemes to run. We'll figure out who's going to be our coach once we have a general manager in the seat. But just by him being who he is, guys, I see Cooper Flagg elevating this team to the point where we're going to be hanging another banner in American Airlines Center or whatever new arena we move into whenever that happens. Last thing I want to say, and this is where I really want to open it up for discussion. As far as who Cooper Flagg reminds me of after watching an entire season, I'm going to throw a mix of 2 former Duke players out there. The one of them you've heard me say 100 times on the show. His game reminds me a lot of Jason Tatum, right? Very athletic, not necessarily known to be a pure shooter, but has really developed that as part of the game. Really physically gifted. He's going to go yam on somebody. I remember Jason Tatum announcing his presence to the rest of the NBA whenever he dunked over LeBron in the playoffs. Okay. That's the kind of things those are kind of plays that we're going to be seeing Cooper Flagg make over and over and over. And Jason Tatum is also known for being a 2-way superstar. That's what we're seeing from Cooper Flagg. The other player, and this is going way back to the 90s, the era of basketball I grew up watching. I'm going to compare him to Grant Hill. For all the reasons that I just talked about with Jason Tatum, it's just that natural, I'm better than pretty much anybody else that I'm on the court with. That is what we see. That's what, if you go back and you watch highlights of Grant Hill, it didn't matter if he was on the court with Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen or Shaquille O'Neal or any of those big names. He wasn't intimidated at all, and he was going to go directly after those guys. That is what I see from Cooper Flagg. The games that we matched up against, LeBron or Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard, he takes that stuff so personally, and he's been a film rat. He's obsessed over getting better by watching all these guys. Now that it's his turn, he wants to go put all of those guys on a poster. That's the kind of mentality I saw from Grant Hill whenever he was healthy. Hopefully Cooper Flagg doesn't go on that trajectory, but those are the players that he reminds me of the most. I wanted to say Scottie Pippen, but you get the idea. We're talking about wing players kind of in that 6'9", 6'10" range that can really do it all. Handle the ball, get some good shots off, lock virtually anyone down on D. That's why I compared Cooper Flagg to Jason Tatum and Grant Hill. right? So tell me who he reminded you the most of this season, right? Is this your favorite Mavericks rookie season you've ever witnessed, right? Like, were you around for the Jason Kidd Rookie of the Year campaign? Were you around when Luka Doncic won 7 years ago? Like, tell me what you're thinking. Like, how does this season compare? Like all the things that we talked about today, the slow start, the turning of the corner as a playmaker, turning of the corner as a shooter and scorer, into becoming like this well-rounded, unbelievable basketball player that we see today. He's better than most veterans right now. Like he's better than probably 95% of the NBA right now. Okay. But he's only going up from here. All right, guys. I said I needed to keep an eye on the clock. The oven went off just a few moments ago. I need to go check that out. Without further ado, I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna tell you all to be good and party